My name is Mark McCrindle. I'm a social researcher with McCrindle Research and spend much of my time running focus groups or surveys or looking at big data and trying to identify the trends and what's going to come next.
So, what research and information do you gather in order to determine new community trends?
Well, to understand the future, you've got to sort of triangulate on it. So we try to take a multifactorial approach. We'll look at the demographics, so just the size of Australia or the household sizes, just the diversity of what comprises us from a demographic perspective. Then we look at social trends, where we're living, how we're interacting, what the life stages are or the expectations are. We'll look at technology trends and how that's impacting family and community interactions. And then there are generational trends. So, the baby boomers have run families and households one way. Now we've got Generation X and emerging Generation Y. So all of those factors together influence the future. And by studying those, you can get a good prediction on where we're headed and what the future holds.
Cool. And in which key areas has the Australian community changed over the past 50 years?
Well, in some of those key areas we've seen the Australian community change. Demographically, we're bigger than we ever were in terms of our population size. We're a bit older as a population. We're more culturally diverse. We're moving more frequently in terms of moving jobs and moving homes. So we're more mobile than ever before. From a social trends perspective, people have different expectations. In a lot of ways, we're not connected in those traditional social organisations or community groups of old, the service clubs or membership-based clubs. People aren't always connected with their neighbours, being more mobile, and churches and the like. So there's less connection in that traditional social fabric. And I think technology has transformed how we interact and how our communities function as well. So yeah, I think there's some key drivers of change right there.
What current trends do you think will be the most influential in the future?
I think technology is most front of mind when we think about the future, and it's transforming communities and our social interactions as well. We probably forget how quickly it's transformed things. In less than half a decade, we've got these new devices that we carry around, the tablets and the smartphones with the apps, and that provides a whole new array of communication platforms. And it does create a great enabler for connection, allows us to find out what's happening in our communities, allows us to navigate our way around and to connect with people around us. And those who are limited in their communication or their ability to get out from a mobility perspective, it's of course very helpful. And I think that'll continue to impact communities. I think there's a downside to that. We're almost in the middle of a global experiment of how the saturation of screen time impacts young people, and particularly the youngest children have only ever known the world of these screens, these mobile multi-screening environment of today, and how that impacts them socially is yet to be seen. We do know that they've got great digital skills from a young age. As for the social skills and whether that's being impinged by the screen saturation, we're yet to fully see. But I think for good and ill, we'll see the technology continue to transform our communities.
Cool. And what motivated a survey on the not-for-profit sector?
Well, we have a real passion for the not-for-profit sector. I think that it's those community organisations that are the lifeblood of so many of our areas of society, that resource and build the social capital of our communities, that support those who need that extra help, or just provide a facilitation to connect people together. So we're passionate about assisting them, and we just wanted to see how Australian not-for-profits are travelling and what are the issues that they're dealing with and what can they do better into the future. If we think about the community-based sector, they've been doing what they've done for a long time, whether it's animal welfare, whether it's alleviating poverty or overseas aid or working with children or just helping create some social interaction. They're really good at that, but society's changed around them. So how do they go applying their particular discipline or focus in a world that's constantly changing? That was really the purpose of that.
Do you think not-for-profit organisations will change over time?
I think not-for-profits and every organisation needs to change over time.
Yeah.
We're all in this non-stop quest for relevance. We all just have to wake up each day and think, how can I reinvent and adjust and adapt today to be relevant this day? Because what worked yesterday may not work today. That's the speed of change today. And I think while we might be an expert in our particular area, while we might have domain knowledge, the question is, how can we communicate or contextualize that to a changing environment? So I think all organisations need to adapt. The not-for-profits, because they often don't have the resourcing, or because they've been so focused on meeting the needs of their communities, they often haven't upgraded or updated what they do as much as perhaps commercial organisations. So all the more reason, I think, for them to look at what they're doing and find more effective ways of communicating and connecting.
Generation Z are the first to be raised in a fully digitised environment. What implications do you expect that to bring out?
Yeah, well, the Generation Z, born since 1995, are now about to turn 20 at the oldest edge, and so they've grown up fully in this digital era, in this 21st century, and they therefore are more digitally savvy. You know, it's the visual literacy, not the written literacy, that shapes them. They're good at finding information. They have utilised the best of the disruptions of technology to bring about outcomes. They're a glass-based learner rather than the pen and paper approach. They live in this open book world. They're a few clicks away from any piece of information on the planet. You know, it's phenomenal how much technology has changed them, how global they have become through it. Rather than just thinking in terms of the classroom and those locally, they are connected through the technology. So I think that they are well equipped to use the technology to solve problems in this 21st century era. And probably what's key for them and for the future is to make sure that we all, I guess, can apply the best of the new, and for Gen Z that's the technology and education they have, but combining that with some of the experience and the knowledge of the past. And I think that's why an intergenerational solution is best. You know, you got the Gen Zs with their tools and technologies meeting the Gen Xer who's got a bit of experience, and you've got the baby boomer who helped shape some of the structures that we have. And I think together you get that great outcome, and I think every generation is key in that equation.
What do you imagine the Australian community to be like in the future?
I think that we've got so many timeless values that will remain strong. I'm optimistic about the Australian community into the future because I think we have some basic values that I think create healthy communities. You know, as Australians, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We don't get too caught up in structures and hierarchies. It's the great level of this culture of ours. We take people at face value. You know, the community values of helping others out. You know, call it mateship or neighbourliness. You know, that's a key tenet that we have. And you know, the neighbour, the mate is anyone. You know, it's those on our shores and further afield as well. And I think those values of looking out for others and being down to earth and overcoming adversity and being able to have a laugh at ourselves are key to that social interaction, key to that community. But with that, you know, Australians are getting more sophisticated and having more of a global outlook, and we're more formally educated than ever before. We're utilising the new technologies. We used to think of ourselves as being down under and isolated and out of the way, and now we're close to where it's all happening in Asia, you know, and responding to these global trends and being exporters not just of great sports people, but business innovation and medical outcomes. And I think the future is very good for Australia. I think where we're located, our population base, you know, the infrastructure that we have, and the attitude all are combining to help us overcome new challenges that this century brings. And I think with that core value at the base, I think we'll thrive into the future.